All right. So I guess this is chapter 2. And I mentioned the lack of identity. Um, so previously I talked about how there's a void now in what it means to be a man in the 21st century. We understand what it means to be a man in the 20th century, the Hulk Hogan's and uh, the weird Andrew Tate shit that they are putting out, which is very toxic. It's the extremes of masculinity that does not respect other people or other people's lives and things like that. And when you push your masculinity to that level, it creates toxicity. Um, and I know there's some men out there that are going to argue about toxic femininity, and that's some philosophers argue that could be submissiveness, where they become people pleasers and all this other stuff. But I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to stay focused on the identity of man, white men specifically. So, in the 21st century, we don't have a true identity of what it means to be a man, and white men have trouble with this because men of color, myself, black men, and some Irish and Italian men don't have this issue because they know where their ancestry or their history lineage comes from. And some of that is, well, I mean, Mexican families, people who immigrated, have their culture and this identity that children at a young age can reconnect with and know what it means to be a man for their culture. And all these other topics that continue on. When the Pilgrims came over centuries ago, they assimilated into the new world by following religion. And they discarded their Dutchness, their Germanness, their French, Scandinavian, everything was like they tried to remove that so that they can blend in and connect with the white people in the colonies. In doing so, they stripped your identity because they wanted to create this new identity in the new world. And over the centuries, people of power, mostly the rich, promoted the idea that uh, when, well, when the Industrial Revolution happened, the rich were in power and they wanted to promote the idea that, well, not the idea, but they needed to convince the public that they need to work in factories in order to produce as much money as possible. And at that time, the values of that was men were the breadwinner, men were this and that, and they needed to go into the factories to work. They needed to go into the coal mines to work. Young boys at the age of 4 were getting, smoking cigarettes and going to coal mines and working. And they're calling them men, 4-year-olds. So, very toxic. Toxic mindset. To them, that was normal. So, and that's me looking backwards in time to give phrases that didn't exist at that time. So, men over the centuries were conditioned to believe that they were cogs in the machine. Essentially, subconsciously told that they're cogs in the machine and replaceable. And to the modern time, or in the 90s and so forth, I think this became more apparent when the default character, when you create a character in a video game, what do you see? It's a white, bald headed, shaved, usually semi muscular man. the generic default character. And that's what white men had to strive for, to be this generic thing. A person that's interchangeable with any other white man in the US. How can a man, a white man in the US, latch onto that? Because when they load up this video game, a young boy looking at that goes, oh, that's supposed to be me. This generic thing. While people of color have their ancestry, their heritage, and all this stuff, their rites of passage. But white young men don't have that. They don't have a rites of passage. Generally, the US doesn't have a rites of passage. It's not in our culture. So we create an artificial version of that, but without actually saying it. And we create one that's subconscious. We don't say it out loud. It's the unwritten rule, but like you test how violent you can be, how much alcohol you can drink, how much of a womanizer you can be. And this is seen through when young men join the military. Yes, there's other reasons why they join the military, but a lot of them want to go to war to prove themselves. And a lot of people say this when I joined the military. And they wanted to prove how masculine they are. And it's pretty gross that recruiters know this about young men and exploit that. But the young men who don't go to the military, when they go into college, well, this isn't even limited to military men, but like in the military and for civilian college students, white young men push themselves to be the heaviest drinker, to be the womanizer and try to go out and get laid all the time, or do the most violent, crazy acts as possible. And that's their rites of passage now. And they try to outdo the other ones because the Industrial Revolution put the mindset of competition, that you have to be better than the other person. You need to outperform your competitors so that you get paid more and you get all these other benefits. You get all this money because you want to be the breadwinner for your family. So they take advantage of our natural competitiveness of our nature, and white young men become isolated in this way. White men see each other as competition and therefore are not able to connect so much with these other white men because they're supposed to outperform. They're being told to always outperform, to compete with them, to do better than your friends. You want to be the one with the hottest girlfriend, to have all this luxury, and to be like the toughest and the badass, or badass-addest, whatever that fake word that I just made up. So, being told your whole life that you have to be this, and then suddenly in 2016, that doesn't exist anymore. Where does that leave white men?